Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is Learning Life Skills Together weekly Zoom meeting number 89. We're going to talk about our connection to nature. And as always, we're going to start with a practice. So to really connect with nature, we have to be living in our senses. So the practice that I'm going to invite you to try is a practice of hearing. So I'm not going to say listening because that means that you're actively trying to hear things. I want to see if we can maybe just let sounds come to us. So you could find a way of sitting or standing or lying down that is comfortable for you. You could close your eyes if you're in a position to do that. And by the way, if you're driving while you're listening to this, please don't do this. So just settling in for a minute. Maybe feeling your body right where it is, right where you've placed it. Feeling yourself from the feet and where they're touching down or not touching down. Up through the body to the places that are touching down. So how are you being held here by gravity? Just checking in to see if you can more or less allow yourself to be held. Maybe there's some work that you're putting into being the way you are that you could let go of. And then just tuning into what you are hearing right now. So maybe noticing the sounds that are up close to you, maybe even sounds that are inside you. Maybe there's a sound that goes with swallowing, sound that goes with breathing. Maybe there are the sounds of you adjusting yourself in your seat or on the couch or wherever you are. And opening up to sounds that might be further away, sounds in the room where you are. And sounds further away. Our sense of hearing reaches out until it doesn't, until there's no chance of those sound waves reaching our eardrums. So maybe you feel like hearing opens you up a little bit to the world. And so we're not controlling our hearing. We really don't have a way of doing that. We don't have earlids like we have eyelids. So just we allow the sounds that are there to come to us. And maybe there are sounds that are human made and sounds that are made by the machines that we use. Maybe there are automobile sounds. Maybe there's sounds of your heater or air conditioner running. Other appliances if you're in your home. Just noticing them. Sounds of other people moving around. They're all okay. They're all here. And you notice that they're also gone. Not very, uh, not very long. They're just here, hanging around a little bit, and then they're gone, mostly. And even the ones that sound like they're going on and on will eventually stop. And so it's a constantly moving background for you. And if your mind wanders off wondering what that sound is, you can just bring it back and say, it's okay, it's just a sound. And when you're ready, if your eyes have been closed, you could open them. If they've been open, well, here you are, still listening, still hearing me. So I hope that that maybe brought you in a little bit to the present moment, um, and maybe focused you a little bit, because that's one of the things that nature does for us. And I've been thinking about nature this week because there were two articles that really grabbed my attention. One was an article about nature connectedness and countries and their nature connectedness. And I was really intrigued to find out where the United States stood in that. So this was a study of 61 different countries. And it turns out that we are number 44 um, in nature connectedness. So it's not so much a big deal for Americans to feel like they're connected to nature. It is, however, a big deal for our kids to be connected to nature. A child development has, a lot to do with exploring the world, being in the world, and actually getting dirty in the world, going out, crawling around, being in the grass, being in the dirt, gardening, fishing, hunting, playing in the streams. All of those kinds of things are really good for children's mental development and mental health, as well as for their physical health. And the article that I saw was about how important it is to be out of doors and to make a connection with nature, like being down on your knees and hands and crawling around in the grass and, sitting down outside, being walking outside, playing outside in a natural setting, not on concrete. Because what they found is that there are microorganisms, there are tiny organisms of all types that help us, that are actually part of our bodies, that, we're all well aware of the of the things that are in our stomach that help us to digest and that help things to move around in our bodies. And so Those are fed and balanced by being out of doors. The study that I saw, actually, there's a bunch of studies, were of small children, like under 4. The first 1,000 days of a child are really, really important for development and for this physical development and the kind of balance that we want to have that keeps us well. So when kids are have a chance to be out of doors and, you know, in a natural setting with trees around them, with plants around them, it's really helpful. Even one tree, even one plant, even a patch of grass is really helpful to them. And so in the study, which took place in Finland, which is extremely cold a lot of the year, they try to keep the kids in the daycares outside as long as they can, as long as it makes sense. But when it gets down below zero, most of the time you're thinking another thought. And so what they've done is they've created daycare centers that have a forest inside, essentially. So the ground is ground. They have big spaces that are covered with growing plants. They try to incorporate trees inside the buildings. So it's really kind of an exciting, strange idea. And they've been doing it for a while, and now they're funding more and more of these things because what they found is that the children are much healthier because they're doing this. And they also found that the behavior is a lot, shall we say, calmer and easier when the kids are in nature. So I really wanted to sort of think about what those two studies might mean. They mean that we should really, make use of whatever nature we're near. And then, because I'm a teacher, you know, and um, and I teach about public health and how we can help ourselves to be better. There is a really interesting tool called the nature pyramid. And you're probably familiar with the food pyramid, the nutrition pyramid, right? So at the bottom are the things that you really basically need. You need some protein, you need some carbohydrates as grains, as things that burn kind of slowly. Those are essential to us. And so those are at the bottom of the pyramid, though we need to have them sort of with us all the time. And we need to have them all the time. So this would be stuff you do every day and maybe even every hour with nature. And then you move up, and it's things you should do at least once a week to be out in nature and maybe get a little more exposure and get a little more of the calming effect and the cooling of our brain, calming of our brain effect that nature brings us, right? And then as we move up, it gets a little more rarefied, and we have to take a trip. Maybe we have to go away for a weekend and get into a different connection with nature. So like going to the beach for us Pennsylvanians would count as getting away into a different kind of nature that we can immerse ourselves in. And so finally at the very top is things that we might do once a year if we're lucky. So it's like, what's that really, really, really rare and really expensive food that we would like to try someday? And that's what's up there at the top of the pyramid. So I want to spend some time talking about these layers of the pyramid, these levels of the pyramid, and how it fits in with learning life skills, particularly our activities. So we have this activity that's really important for our working with our attention and our children's capacity for attention, for knowing what's happening around them and knowing what's happening inside them. And so that hourly, you know, at home kind of connection to nature fits right in there. When we look out the window to see a tree, or look out the window and see a big hawk or a vulture circling around, that helps to take us out of ourselves. It connects us to nature in the really important daily way in that having a good balanced meal does. So when we think about what's happening there, it's just a minute, maybe. And it's been through a window, and still we're connected to nature. So, so we don't necessarily even have to step outside to get that kind of connection. There's a very famous study that I've probably mentioned in other Zoom meetings where they looked at patients in a hospital and how quickly they healed, how quickly they got better by which side of the building they were on. There was a side of the building that faced the woods, and there was a side of the building that faced the parking lot. And the people facing the woods, looking out at trees and the sky, got better faster than the people on the other side. So, to be fair, they put big um, pictures up of nature in on the other side, and that helped those folks to get better more quickly. So this is really an important thing, just to give a nod to nature every hour. I mean, I like to get outside, and so I really like the idea of just stepping out your door. Now, your door might just be a view of your neighbor. It might be a view of a sidewalk. And yet, right up above you is the sky. And so, to step out your door, to take a deep breath, connect with the air. How does it feel? What's the temperature of it? How does it feel going into your body? How does it feel coming out? And looking up at the sky. So, so much of our connection with nature is is on that visual level. And what's happening in the sky? Is it overcast and gray? Are there puffy white clouds? Is it pure blue? Where is the sun in the sky? Can you tell? Morning or afternoon? Which way does the sunlight fall? Wherever you are. So we're when we open the door, we're open to nature, right? So it's really pretty easy that way. We get our senses open. And so to just take a few minutes to watch the birds. As I like to say, there are birds everywhere, even when you take a trip to Costco or Home Depot, they're there with you, right? So just noticing the weather, stepping out into the weather just for a few moments. And as we did in our practice, listening to what's out there, the sound of the wind, the sound of the birds. Maybe, there's a hawk that you see. Maybe there's a squirrel chattering away, you know. So this is really a pretty easy level to make the connection with nature with. That's so important. And if you can get out and get your feet in the grass and get your child out and get their feet in the grass and get them looking up and getting some vitamin D from looking up at the sky. All of this is good. So, where in your neighborhood, where 5 minutes, walk one way or the other, can you find some trees or some grass or birds? This connection to the strangeness of nature. We are nothing like birds. There's there's really very little we have in common except maybe walking on two legs. So where can you find that? And can you just access that at random? Just, let's go out. Let's walk 5 minutes out and 5 minutes back and have a little stretch of our legs and, you know, connect to nature. Blue sky. The color green, is the one side of it, and the color blue is the other side of this. And you can look at the sky, you can look at water. So, is there a stream near you? Is there a pond near you? So, those are not out of the question, even in more urban environments, just to find places where the sky is available to you, where there's water. And so that's level one, the one that really sustains us. That's the, I don't know, oatmeal, the rice of of the nature pyramid, right? And then we move up to, some of the, I don't know, meat and potatoes of life, right? Of being in nature. So this is more of a weekly goal. How can you get out for a few hours, into the shadows of a bunch of trees? I won't say shade because I think that we should be doing this year round. So, how do we get into tree shadows when there are no leaves left? How do we just get out there? Um, and again, so it's not green, so it's blue. But the green, brown, orange, yellow, here we are in fall. And so what's there for you? Are there some smaller parks that you can go visit? How far are you from those kinds of things? A park that has a nice walking trail where you can do those things, or maybe there's a hill that you can climb and look out and see, you know, what's in the distance. Maybe you could go somewhere, go to one of our lakes and, you know, get in a canoe, go for a paddle. Again, just a couple of hours. It might take a little organization, but it's possible to do that. And, Pennsylvania is a place that has so much land that's set aside for our use. How can we begin to use it that way? A chance to, go fishing, a chance to go swimming, or sledding, or snowshoeing, whatever it is, whatever fits, you know. And I want to suggest that maybe, on one of those weeks, one of the 52 weeks of the year, you could take a night trip and go someplace where the sky is wide and there's not too much light coming from the towns, and look at the stars. Just let that awe that we talk about in module two, awe and beauty. We've been talking about beauty all along, but there is nothing like the night sky when you see all those stars to change how your heart is beating, to change how your mood is set. So, just some ideas there for the meat and potatoes, the weekly connection. Now, the monthly is starting to get a little rarefied. This is starting to, cost money. Like I say, if you think of it in terms of the foods that you're buying. So we're starting out with oatmeal or rice. We're moving up to hamburger and chicken, right? Um, or tofu, whatever happens for you, however that works. And then we move up to this monthly level where we really do want to get out and do something more intensive. And so that might be a couple of days. How once a month can we have a couple of days that really let us sink into nature? So it might just be setting the time aside and going, to two parks and doing that weekly thing and spending the day. Really putting up the chairs, bringing the picnic, doing the whole deal, right? So that could work for you. We're looking for something like going into the woods or by a lake, or as I say, up a hill to go look out over things, climb a small mountain right, and take a look. And all the while, you can be watching the birds, or you can be at the lake and fishing and exploring, because kids won't fish for as long as adults will. I have had the experience. I know that for fact. So I'm happy to sit there most of the day. Kids want to be up and exploring. And so when we're in a place that has water and plants and small animals and birds to see, there's lots of exploring to do. And this is, again, really good for our kids. It opens up curiosity and the sense of wonder and awe. And, it's a time to take on maybe a little bit of a project, so that we bring paper and crayons, or we bring our paints, or if the kids are older, they bring their musical instruments. And it's a time to be outside and practice and do things. So we get to the making activity as well, or we collect things and go home and make something out of them. So our last talk was about picking up leaves and then making rubbings of the leaves, since that's a good autumn thing to do. But there's lots of things that we can pick up. It might just be that we have a collection of rocks. It might be that we need them for a school project. So there's lots of things that we can connect to that trip and sort of have a bunch of different ideas that we can roll out as the time goes by to keep them busy and keep them in the natural setting, right? So, so to play outside, there's nothing wrong with playing catch, frisbee, all those kinds of things in the out of doors. It's different than your backyard. I want to say, and it's different than the playing field. So, what are the things that are fun that you do that are outside? And then we come to the yearly part of this. So, this is really the most intense, the most expensive thing on the menu at the fanciest restaurant, right? So it may not be something that we can pull off all the time, but it would be nice. And I've found from talking with folks that it's really great just to think about it and plan and wish, and maybe it can come true over time. Where would you really like to go to connect to nature? What's your favorite thing? You know, is it the woods? Do you want to go to California and go walk in a redwood forest? You know, do you, like me, love swamps and you want to go to Florida and visit the Everglades? What is it that you would really like to do? You can look it up. You can read stories about it. You can do all those things. And as we were saying right at the start, the idea that, you know, we can look at pictures and that helps us connect to nature. So, yeah, I'm not going to the Okefenokee Swamp anytime soon, but I can look it up. I can look at pictures of it. I can look at movies that were set there. You know, maybe I would really like to go to, you know, a tropical island. We can visit that visually. But what's really important here is to connect the kids to curiosity and nature. So it's their curiosity that will carry them along. It's their curiosity and their love of that thing that they get curious about that can really make it happen. And so just go back to the hourly, the days. Those are what really matter. And those are the things where we're learning, practicing constantly our paying attention to what's outside and how it makes us feel. When I see that hawk circling, what does that do to me? How do I feel? What changes in me when I watch that happen? Because I don't know. I've been watching it happen for a very long time, let's just say. And it never ceases to interest me. It never ceases to, frankly, fascinate me, amaze me. So, how do we connect as much as possible? How do we use our attention? How do we use our curiosity? And I'll just come back and say that curiosity is the thing that helps us to calm down, right? So when we turn on that prefrontal cortex that we talk about a lot, that part of our brain where our language, our logic, our empathy, our curiosity is, when we turn that part on, it turns down the parts that get anxious. It turns down the parts that set us off. And so we become a calmer person. And isn't that kind of how we would like our children to grow up and to be? So we can be that. We're nature, by the way. We're human beings. We're from the animal kingdom. And so we calm our children. They calm us. When they calm down, we calm down. And so we can do all of that and build our connection with nature and want to take care of nature and maybe become ultimately a more nature connected country. So 44th is not really a very exciting position to be in, I gotta say. So let's end with just a moment of listening to what's around you right now. Maybe if you're inside, you could see if anything comes to you from outside. Is there some connection that you have with nature. And if you've closed your eyes, you could open your eyes and see if there's a connection to nature right where you are. Is there a window where you see a tree or the sky or a patch of ground? Is there a picture in the house, in the room? Is there a book of stories that are about the out of doors? All of those are good connections. And so I'll leave you to be curious.